David Pendleton.
Good morning, MZ. Good to see you.
I like your I like your stocking cap.
That's a kufi. It's called a kufi.
When I was a kid, they used to call them a toque. And I don't know how you spell it, T-U-K-E or T-O-O-K or what.
It's a Canadian word.
Okay. Have you heard the word toque?
Toque is used a lot in Canada.
Oh, okay. Good. So, but is it correct to say you're wearing a toque?
It may...
Incorrect.
Incorrect. I prefer kufi because it's a little bit different from the styling. So, it's a kufi.
All right. Well,
more of a skull cap.
I'll try, sort of like a yarmulke.
A grown-up one, a bigger,
right.
Somewhere in between.
What a show we're going to have today,
All
Dave
right.
Pendleton.
What's
Are you
going on?
excited as I am?
I am now.
I am sick and tired of this damn drought.
Yeah.
Which is ruining our lives, okay?
I've got to do my rain dance again. Last time I did it, we got a little rain the following day.
It is going... Oh, good. Well,
oh, yeah.
Well, you should be doing them every day.
Okay. We'll meet back next week, and we'll see what happens.
Okay. And we're going to hold you to that. So it occurred to me, we did a show 10 or 11 years ago about desalination. Mm-hmm. And back then, I didn't know whether to call it desalination or desalinization.
Yes.
But I think it's the shorter way. I think it's desalination. And if we would have been a lot more forceful in the last decade, I think there would be a lot more desalination plants that might have been built in the last decade so that the water impact of the drought would be much less.
If we could mitigate that, that would be helpful.
Yeah, and so I figured it was high time to do a follow-up program on desal, and we got a great guest today for the first hour. Dave Michaels.
Good morning, MZ.
What can you tell me about the Dave Cave goings-on today?
Well, I can tell you a couple of things, MZ. We just got some EFAs in, so that means that we now can create the Healthy Start Pack, which is basically just three things: Tangy Tangerine, OsteoFX, and EFAs. We now have the Healthy Start Packs, but we also have the 2.5. So if the 2.5, the Tangy Tangerine 2.5 is something that you wanted to try, we have the 2.5 Healthy Start Packs in there right now. I probably have about 4 or 5 of them in there. And today, MZ, I am going to offer, for anybody who wants to stop by and pick up a new 2.5 Start Pack, a free catalog. So that you can just sit at home and look at the products before you decide what to buy.
Holy Christmas.
Yeah.
That's like a throwback to the good old days
Right.
when they had catalogs.
Yes, I just found them, and now I dug them out of the corner. I found them in the corner. They're full of dust. They're about 3 years old. The products are still
the
listed.
prices are probably...
Prices are a little wacky. You know, they're a little... they're old prices, but the products are still the same. They don't go anywhere. They are just... They are tried and true. They are classic products, and they're all in the catalog.
Dave Michaels, I need
sir.
to ask you this question.
Yeah.
Don't be offended.
Yeah.
Oh, and more importantly, the listening audience should not be offended. But we are old peoples. And old
Indeed.
peoples sometimes get, shall we say, plugged up. Mm-hmm. I know somebody very well who got plugged up this last week.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I want to ask you if consuming EFAs in significant or even great quantity can solve that problem.
I don't know, but the EFAs are good for... Man, they're good for so much, MZ.
I thought they're good for lubrication.
Oh, you mean? Oh, I see. You're talking about digestively.
Make the stuff, slide through
to make
easier
things
instead
easier.
of get clogged.
Herbal rainforest is the way to go, MZ. Herbal rainforest.
I've heard that just, I forgot all about that.
That stuff works fantastic.
I should have told this person who experienced this clogged up sensation for 4 or 5 days this last week to take herbal rainforest.
Herbal Rainforest is the new sponsor of the KSCO traffic afternoon traffic.
Wow.
Yeah, when things are backed up, you need herbal rainforest.
All right.
That's amazing.
That's great, Dave.
Okay, MZ, I'm going to be out there till 2 o'clock today. I'm excited about your guest, MZ. That's something that's very, very, to me, it's frightening, the water shortage, because civilizations have fallen because of water shortages.
Yeah.
It's a scary thing, man. It's absolutely scary. So I'm excited about this.
We're going to try to do something positive about it today.
Good. All right, MZ.
So
I'll
see
be
you
out
at
there
the Dave
till 2
Game till
o'clock.
2 o'clock today.
KSCO.com, donate there, and also find a link to KSCO Health.
Okay, very good. Now let's start the show.
Good morning. A brighter day is here. Good morning. May we bring you cheer.
We've got time, we've got tunes, we've got time, tunes, and temperature.
Get up and go, it's today, you know, on KSCO Radio.
Now today we're going to provide evidence for you, a good reason that this is your favorite radio station, because we're going to come up with a solution to our drought situation. I'm not making jokes about it. It's getting pretty serious now, gang, you know, and I didn't think it could get that. It was bad a year ago. I mean, a decade ago. But it's really, really bad now. We're going to see if we can do something about that. Stay with us.
Good morning. Now stay right here on KSCO Radio.
Sachin Chawla. Are you there?
Hi, MG.
Hi, how are you? Listen, we're not a very professional radio station, and we're sort of proud of it. But I told Rosie, our program director, and my assistant earlier this week, we need to do something. We need to do a Saturday special on desal. So make it happen. And here you are. Okay, you're the executive VP of a company called Poseidon Water, right?
That's right.
Okay, and you're based in Southern California in Carlsbad, I think. Is that correct?
Yes, MG, that is correct.
And there is a operating since 2015, I believe, desal plant in Carlsbad that your company helped design and manage and advocate for. Is that? I'm struggling here, but I think I'm on the right track. Am I?
Yes, MG. Poseidon Water is actually a developer of these water and big, large desalination plants.
Okay.
And we developed this, and like you said, this plant has been running since 2015, and we've produced over 90 billion, with a B, 19 billion gallons of water so far.
From the sea, which there can't be a more prolific source of water than the ocean. And, I've gone on a number of cruises in my life, and I've always enjoyed and wondered about and scratched my head about how they could have so much delicious, pure water, which is basically distilled water that has come from the saltwater ocean. So they have they have onboard desal plants on every cruise ship, and it's obviously to serve 3,000 or 4,000 people on a good-sized cruise ship, including the crew. Why can't that be harnessed on a larger scale to produce all the water we could ever want or need for irrigation and for drinking and for showering and for gray water uses, even though it's clear water? Why can't it? Especially when you're in a drought like we've been for an extended period of time. Why can't we do that?
So the question is not why can't we do that. I think, MZ, as you mentioned, this has been done. This technology has been there for the last 50 to 60 years. You were right about cruise ships. There are islands where you go on resorts. Resorts have these desal plants too. And Carlsbad has had this. I mean, Carlsbad is right here in Southern California. And there are countries like Israel, Saudi Arabia, Australia, I mean, you name it, everybody's diversifying into desal. And just because, we can always not rely on the rain and the natural sources of water, rivers dry up in droughts, and the groundwater cannot be replenished if there is no rain, right? So cities and places you're relying on groundwater, we've heard in California, the wells are drying up. So it's not a matter of why can't we do this. I think it's already there, and we're hoping that this can be implemented.
Well, the question is why haven't we done it then? If not why can't we do it? Why haven't we?
Well, Carlsbad also, it took almost 15 years or more to get permitted from the State Lands Commission, from the Regional Water Board, and also from the Coastal Commission. So it was a lengthy process. And as we all know, I mean, California has one of the strictest and stringent permit regulations, which is fine. And I think Huntington Beach, which was another project we were developing in Orange County, a sister plant to Carlsbad, was just waiting for this last discretionary permit from the Coastal Commission, which got denied actually a week ago.
Yeah, that was a major news story, or at least I don't know if it's as major as it should have been, but that's real. So is it the end of the road now for that particular project for Huntington Beach, or can you appeal this decision?
This decision can be appealed in the Superior Court, but we cannot appeal to the Coastal Commission. But it can be done. I mean, there is a.
Why did the Coastal Commission? Was that the last step? If they would have ruled in favor of it, would the next step be construction?
Yes, if they would have approved this, the next step would be for us to finalize the water purchase agreement with an off-taker here in Orange County, and then we actually already went through the process of selecting a contractor to design and construct it. So we would update those costs and start construction next year, if it was approved.
And how long would the construction have taken before the new desal plant at Huntington Beach would be online?
So as we know, Rome wasn't built in a day, and a desal plant of this size and magnitude, I think we could have completed it in 3 years. Carlsbad was done in 3 years. And I think
so it would come online in 2025, early 2026, right? And
that would be correct.
I believe I saw that as proposed, that plant would have been capable of serving the water needs, the complete water needs, correct me if I'm wrong, about 400,000 people. Yeah?
That is correct. Right.
Okay. So how realistic is it to believe that the water problems are that the water problems can be solved by building? You'd have to build quite a few plants. Even if you build 10 plants, it would only serve 4 million people, and California has way more than 400 people.
Yeah, so when we talk about 400,000, we're talking about 400,000 households, right?
Exactly, households, excuse me, yeah.
So probably more people. So it's not like desal is the only solution that is available, and that will solve the entire water crisis.
Right.
I mean, we all know, we all have 401k. Everybody knows what 401k is, and we kind of invest in it. And the 401k is invested in various stocks, bonds, so that it can help you in your retirement and in the future, long term, right? It's a long-term investment.
Wow.
Similarly, desal is just another part of the water portfolio. So
right.
You could have water from Colorado, you could have water from state water projects, you could have groundwater, you could have recycling, you could have, so, and desal is just another element to add when, things like this happen. I mean, we are in a 1,200-year mega drought. And what I've read, at least, I'm not a climate scientist, but what I've read, this drought is going to get worse in the coming years. So in 2026, if the drought gets worse, would we regret this decision that we could have built one and diversified?
Yeah, well, I'm already regretting that nothing has been done in the last 10 years. And for the life of me, I can't understand why the damn Coastal Commission would have turned thumbs down on this Huntington Beach project only a couple of weeks ago. It makes no sense to me. What did they say their reason was?
Well, Coastal Commission staff came up with a denial recommendation based on certain reasons. And I think that's their job, right, to bring up concerns as a regulatory body. And as an applicant, our job was to respond to that. And we responded with how to handle those concerns. Like, for example, they said, the site in Huntington Beach, is it a low-lying area? There are coastal hazards like tsunami, sea level rise that we need to plan for. And we came up with a solution. We're going to build it under building category, risk category 4. That takes care of that. I don't think so. That was taken into consideration by the commission. And I think it's also the process, right? Coastal Commission staff issues a report 3 weeks before the hearing. It's a 200-page report. And we have to counter that after we see their reasons. And we submitted our response a week before that, which is again 200 pages. So I did not imagine that the staff would have time to review what a response is, and the commission can make a sound decision based on those responses. So commission heard the opposition, commission heard other people who voiced their concerns, but I think there is science, there are facts, there is engineering involved where those concerns could have been solved. And I don't know if the commission made the decision based on all that.
Well, you said earlier that the next step is not a review by the Coastal Commission. They've already made their decision. The next step is in the Superior Court. Yeah?
That is correct.
And when will that take place?
Well, I'm not really sure. As a company, we haven't made a decision yet whether we are pursuing that path or not. Obviously, our investors have spent $100 million over the last 20 years trying to get this permitted. Every time we've gone, some new regulation and some new concerns have been raised. So last year, we got a regional board permit, which was a great achievement. The regional board determined that this site was the best site. We had the best design technology, and we had all the mitigation feasible to build a plant. I mean, that is regional board's preview, and that's their jurisdiction to decide that. And I think here Coastal made this decision that this site or this technology wasn't the best in terms of the intake and marine life impacts. Yeah, they can talk about marine life impacts, which they
Yeah, please, let's do that. What is... Somewhere I read that the Sierra Club was a major opponent and probably had a great deal to do with the decision of the Coastal Commission to turn down the permit request here. So, and I read a little bit about that. But why don't you bring us up to date, Aman? Because this is what you do all day long, and so yeah. Well, let's play a little devil's advocate for a while, if you don't mind doing that. What are the concerns of having, the marine biology, nearby marine biology impact concerns? Mm-hmm. Okay, and how do you deal with it?
Yeah, so, the open ocean intake will pull anything in. Because of this concern, actually in 2015, California State Water Board came up with a new regulation because called the Ocean Plan Amendment, which actually defined that you had to put 1 millimeter screen. So 1 millimeter is like a thickness of a dime. So you had to build screens at the intake so that you can minimize the marine life impact. And if there are marine life impacts, then the applicant has to mitigate for it. So you have to basically create new wetlands so that you can. I'm sorry, MZ, I'm getting a little echo here.
I'm sorry, I did get your text, and you certainly are communicating well. It must be irritating as hell for you. So the only thing that I think we can do is to have David hang up and have David call you, originate the call on our end. You see the phone number, David? Okay. Yeah. Why don't we do that? And I'll do a little tap dance here while we're attempting to reconnect with our guest.
Now,
yeah? Does that sound okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you okay, but I'm hearing myself.
Yeah, let me unlock you here, and we'll try to see if we can get a better tandem line or long distance line or something. So, yeah, you can. Oh yeah, you're calling on the VIP line. That's great. Okay, and he should be able to hear. What do I need to do? You can get on and talk to me and tell me what I need to do because I'm not reading lips.
So just make sure he can hang up and I can call him back.
Okay, yeah. So you go ahead and hang up, Sachin, and David will be calling you in a second here. Okay? Or actually, I can do that myself. I can hang up on our guest. How often is it acceptable to intentionally hang up on your guest? But in this circumstance, it was because the guest was getting a very irritating and annoying feedback on his end. He was sounding great on our end, and he was able to express himself very nicely, admirably, I would say. But anyhow, yeah, I've been a guest before on the telephone, and when you hear yourself echoing, a half a second or a second, it makes it very, very, very difficult to. Are you having trouble getting through, David? Yeah.
Just have to wait for him to hang up. So it's going to voicemail right now. So
okay.
Continuing.
All right. Well, maybe he will. I don't know what's going on here, but it might be on that end. But you're listening to the KSCO Saturday Special. We're doing a follow-up on a show we did 10 or 11 years ago on desal. And here it is, well into the longest drought that I can remember in my history. And we were talking about concerns of drought back more than a decade ago here on this program. And here it is worse than ever now, and we seem to be, I seem to be regretting that we haven't moved forward to create many, 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 many more desal plants. And what's the reason? Why? Is it the same old reason that it's very difficult to get anything through involving government agencies? In California, I don't know. I don't know what's going on here, but in any case, we seem to be having difficulty reconnecting with our guest. So maybe he will call us back. I don't know what the deal is, but we will keep trying. Anyhow, if you want to give us a call, 479-1080, and bring up some thoughts that you might have. Do you think it's too simple to be concerned about? Something very obvious to me that we could and should be doing to mitigate the drought and mitigate the impact that we've been having on our ability to use and drink water in our great state. So I just don't know. But in any case, this is the KSCO Saturday Special on your favorite radio station. I'm MZ. We are attempting to reconnect with our guest, who I perhaps foolishly decided that we should hang up and try to reconnect to. In any case, we do have somebody we have a number of people who are calling here. Sam in Santa Cruz, what do you have to say about this subject?
Good morning, Michael. So I know that there was a country out there, I think it was Venezuela, but one of the countries out there did desalination, and they basically killed all the fish in their coasts. And so that's one reason not to, is if you can't do it, on a small small enough basis to not over salt your coastal waters.
Right.
But, there's other spots to get water. I think I actually heard that on your Saturday morning, the first one in the morning, the conspiracy one. That's really cool to listen to. I can't remember
Dane Wiggington, Geoengineeringwatch.org. And by the way, I expect that Dane will be our guest second hour here because he has some thoughts about this too.
You also have the homeless one, and they have a project where they're getting their water fresh out of the air.
Wow.
So there's other options. I don't know what's the best. Obviously, cost is a big deal.
Right.
And my folks invested in desalination company 25 years ago and lost all that money because obviously it only goes so far and then it's gone.
Wow.
Never came to fruition.
Wow. Okay. Well, I've just texted our guest back a special phone number.
Our guest is there on the VIP line.
Oh, good. Okay, great. So we'll bring Sachin back, and here, let me lock Sam in so that we don't lose him. I'll bring in Sachin, lock him in. Okay, yeah, I guess you haven't said anything yet, Sachin, so you don't know whether this worked or not.
I'm on. Yeah, I think this is
much better.
I'm hearing my echo, but much better. But I'm still hearing the echo. But we can give it a shot.
Well, again, we have been trying to call you, and David. Every time David, it just goes to voicemail. It will not ring your phone. So I think we can solve the problem if we can somehow call you.
He called me, so I picked it up this time. I think for some reason it wasn't ringing. So
oh, I see. So you did. All right. You think you can grin and bear it here for the next half hour because we got a lot of callers who apparently want to talk to you. So.
Yeah, no, this is fine now.
Okay. Sam in Santa Cruz was on while you were off. He was pointing out that he some family or friend invested in desal and lost all their money or something. Is that right, Sam?
Yes.
Okay. What else do you have to say here?
Really,
real quickly. We don't want to give Sachin a hard time, but these are some obvious questions that come along. I was asking why wouldn't anybody want to put desal to work for us, and you're coming up with a reason or two, right?
There was a country, and I can't remember which one it was, did desal, and they killed all their fish on the coast. Basically, it polluted the water, or made it unlivable for their fish. I can't remember if it was Venezuela or one of those countries down there, but it was a big deal.
Sachin probably knows what you were talking about. What do you think, Sachin?
I'm actually not too sure what they're talking about, what the reason was, but as you've seen, that's been operating for the last 5 years here.
Yeah.
And we have not seen such phenomena happen, and we are complying with all the regional board and the state permits. And actually, in fact, one of the biologists I was talking to, they have seen that where the brine is discharged, actually, there are more marine life population that come out there and live there. So, they adapt, and for some reason, I'm not a biologist, so I can speak of them, but when I talked to them, they said, no, that it's just the other way around. You end up having more fish and planktons and other species come and start enjoying that. And also, just to be very clear, under the regulations, the brine, as it goes in the ocean, within 600 feet, it's background salinity. So it's not like the whole ocean is becoming more saline and clear. Just within 600 feet of the discharge, it comes back to background salinity.
Right. Okay, let's see. We have a number of other callers. Let's go to Rich Lieberman in San Francisco. Rich, you're on the air with Sachin and MZ.
Yeah, good morning. That's a subject near and dear to my heart. In California, look, and I'm sure this may have been already touched upon, I don't know, but let's go back a little bit. In the Middle East, the countries there, obviously, and they have not only the needs, infrastructure, cost benefits, etc., geographical reality, they've been building and maintaining desalination plants for years and years because by necessity. We in California, we feed the world, right? Our longevity in terms of sustenance and being able to feed the world and having agricultural and personal and just basic common sense value with regards to our water is literally for the not only our benefit but for the world's benefit, because without our productivity in terms of agriculture, we have a very severely lacking country in terms of agriculture and et cetera. So one of the reasons why we don't build, they say, desalination plants is, and I'm laughing at this, is the cost. We're literally, last 10 years, throwing billions in terms of, the pandemic, obviously, with aid to our citizens and all sorts of money, literally billions and billions and billions. We've had 2 recessions, etc. Yet we cannot put aside billions of dollars to build desalination plants. That way we wouldn't have to rely upon rain. We live next to a freaking ocean with limitless, and I know I'm preaching to the choir.
Well, not really, Rich. I'm sort of amazed at how many emails I'm getting and some calls from people who are against desal, and I'm still very much in favor of it. But who knows? I haven't done that much study about it. But sounds like you're very much in favor of it. Yes.
Well, yes, I am, and let me tell you why. And I want to listen to you. I want to ask your guest one question, and I will let you. I know you got called.
Yeah.
Forgive my cold. I have a cold.
But that's another reason we should hang up. I don't want to catch it.
No, yeah, right. But look, if we have one more year, and this is not now just an occurrence every other year, we have had drought-like conditions really for the past decade. Now, you can go, that's another topic in terms of why our weather seems to have extreme.
And next hour, by the way, I want to give a promo. Dane Wiggington is going to be our guest, who does from Geoengineering Watch, and he does the Coming Collapse radio program. Or actually, there's another name now. Pot up the phone volume. Oh, okay. Here, I'll pot up the phone volume. Good. Okay.
But I want to. That's okay. I want to ask your guest a question, but I want to get his. But I want to make one more statement before I ask the question. But we need water. We have one more year of, and I don't have to tell your guest or you or your listeners, the reservoirs now are, I don't even know if he's seen Lake Mead in Nevada, what it looks like now. That's a whole nother area. But our situation is dire straits. We have, for whatever reason, I'm not going to get into climate change or why we're having the kind of weather extremes that we have, but this is reality. The reality is we have very little depth in our reservoirs, with LA taking a lot of the water that we do have, et cetera, et cetera. Agricultural needs, the Bakersfield project, the project which I forget. My point is we need desalination plants, and they work. And as I said, in the Middle East, that's how they get by. They don't have oceans like we have. They obviously have to rely upon technology to get their water. I don't know why this is a no-brainer. I want to get your guest's reaction, and then one quick last question, if it's okay.
Go ahead, Sachin.
Yep. Yeah, so Rich, you're right. I mean, again, like you said, the California coast is there, and we'll not solve the entire state's problem. But what happens is when you build desalination plants along the coast, at least the coastal communities, and some of them are big communities, LA, San Diego, Orange County, up in Santa Cruz and other areas. So you can build desal plants so that then the inland communities can get the state water, State Water Project, or in Southern California, Arizona, Nevada, and Southern California, they all rely on Colorado River, which, as you said, is drying up. So if you don't build desal plants, what happens to the inland communities? One of the big reasons was environmental justice, the reason for denial, too, under the Coastal Commission. So what happens to these inland communities where there could be a different kind of demographic? It really impacts them because when there's scarce water, water agencies start to increase the water price. So it's just so counterintuitive to think that desal is expensive and it is going to affect people. But as you've seen in San Diego, the average household cost increase was only approximately $5, and we were projecting same in Orange County. That's $5 per month. It's like a cup of coffee.
Right.
So and to get a drought-proof supply for the next generation, not for ours. It's for the next generation because nobody can predict what this climate change, like you said, would do in the next decade, next 2 decades, next 3 decades. So if we don't start to think ahead, I don't know what's going to happen.
That's my point exactly. And what do I know?
I make one last comment. I'll let you go. I think this, first of all, Michael, this is a great topic, and this is something we ought to be talking about regularly. I love your guest, not just because I agree with him or disagree with him. This is an important topic because this is about our lives. Last I checked, we need water. Water is something we cannot take for granted, and especially in the conditions in which we live these days. And the fact is, as I stated, we are in a very tenuous situation. This is not something that just happened overnight. We've had drought-like conditions for in and out of the last decade. It's no longer, we had one of our last years where we had normal, and this is just normal, not even over in terms of rain, was 2010, 2011. Other than that year, and we've had some winters where we got bailed out by a very wet April or a March. Other than that, we're going to have, and I know, you just look around the reservoirs around the state, and we are in trouble. And we cannot afford to sit around. We have to build these plants. Otherwise, there'll be a time when you look around the reservoirs and the water, it'd be like a dry lake bed. So I think this is a great topic to discuss and extremely vital, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Rich. Appreciate your call to 479-1080. A smart comment is coming next from none other than everybody would know who listens to KSCO regularly, Colonel Terry. You're on with Sachin.
I'll be brief and efficient. MZ, my Air Force experience included being on a submarine with nuclear reactor. And that reactor worked efficiently, and that reactor design, we could spend some of the $91 billion of California state surplus to put 6 or 7 of them along the coast and generate power far cheaper than PG&E sells us, and also generate desaled water from the nuclear plant, and we could pump that, get the water in safely from the Pacific, and we could ship it out safely to the Pacific with all that electricity and many to spare.
So your point here is that nuclear power and desal sort of go together.
Well,
could be very, very complementary, right?
Of course. Small nuclear plants like the French demonstrate and like our U.S. Navy demonstrates in submarines and ships. And it's typical of the stupidity, laziness, or ineptitude of our California state government for the past 10 or 20 years, especially the last 8, not to have jumped to this solution, which I and others have offered. It's so obvious with some of this excess surplus money we have. They're cheap to build, they're reliable, they're safe, and there we go. And the brine water can be shipped out into the 6,000-mile Pacific, very safe to dissipate it. I'm curious if your guest agrees with me that far better than burning fossil fuels, natural gas to desalinate water. Speaking of pollution, my solution is cheaper, it's better, but it cannot be run by PG&E and for-profit corporations that are ripping us off. And I don't say things I haven't got evidence for. It has to be run like Sacramento Power and Light as a state-owned or municipal-owned nuclear electric desal plant, so that you don't have the profit motive to ship the money to the Wall Street bankers and the Saudi investors, who, by the way, own PG&E in part. That's the solution. Sacramento Power and Light has demonstrated they generate power, for example, 40% to 70% cheaper than PG&E does, because they're not saddled with the profit motive. Plain and simple.
All right, you have a response, Sachin, to Terry, who some people think is our smartest regular listener and caller.
Yeah, Colonel Terry, I think you're right. I mean, desal, if you want to reduce cost, electricity is one of the big operating costs for a desal plant. So it's like 40% of the total operating cost. So if there are solutions out there to reduce the cost of electricity, you can reduce the cost of desal. And for Huntington Beach, we had actually signed an MOU with Orange County Power Authority to basically buy all renewables. So if renewables were available, we would power this desal plant with 100% renewables. So, but no, I mean, I can't speak. I'm not an expert in nuclear and how it can be permitted or regulated here in California.
Well, six or eight nuclear plants I described could be built for less than $1 billion each. And we have $97 billion in surplus money in California state funds.
Well, that's hard to argue with. Anyhow, thank you for calling, Colonel Terry. Here is Sean in Live Oak. Thanks for waiting, Sean. You're on.
Yeah, and I guess just to touch on a couple of points that previous callers have made, going back to Israel and along the Persian Gulf, desal is used extensively, and there's the problems that they encounter, we can study and come up with, see what they've done right, make modifications. But the other thing in this state is our water. Last time we've had a major water project in this state has been back in the 1950s. I mean, we haven't built more reservoirs. We haven't built more water cisterns. And we haven't built desal. And our population has gone up. I'm just wondering, does anybody
We built
else
one desal plant that came online in 2015 that we spoke about earlier in this broadcast. But yes, you're right. I mean, it's like a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, and the other thing is, especially with the problems that we know that we're going to be having this summer with power electricity generation and rolling blackouts, is this just seems to be a thing that we can do that can solve two things at once. We can have power production for the desal, and Colonel Terry brought up the idea of nuclear. We could do that. So we have the power for the desal, we get the water, but we also get the power that we need.
Okay, great. Thank you for calling 479-1080. Here comes R&R in Pacific Grove. Hi, R&R. You're on.
Hello. I want to ask your guests, in Venezuela, what do they use to collect the salt, and where do they dispose of the excess salt?
I'm not, this is Sachin. I'm very familiar with what Venezuela is doing there.
Is that the country you were talking about before?
No. So we were talking about the diesel plant here in California. I'm not aware of Venezuela.
All right. Okay. So, just where are they planning to dispose of the salt, and what do they use to collect the salt when they do that, and how do they dispose of it? Because I haven't heard anyone mention opening up a salt company to process the salt, because I remember they used to do that up in Newark, California, in Oakland, in Alameda County. They had a Leslie Salt Company, and they mined all the salt out of the evaporators.
Thanks for bringing that. What a great, thank you for adding that to the program.
Oh, Mr. Zwerling, did you get I left a message on your answering machine the other day. Did you get it?
I don't get an answer. I don't have an answering machine. There's a mistake. There should never be. No one should ever leave a message for me on any answering machine because I never check any answering machine and haven't for 25 years. If you want to get a message through to me, just a minute. If you want to get a message through to me, mz@ksco.com. If you don't have email, get a friend or a relative who does have email, and I'll get back to you usually very quickly. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks.
All right.
Well, let's see. We have about 8 minutes left in this hour number 1 of the KSCO Saturday Special. I want to read an email that I got, 20 minutes ago from T. Subject line says, don't want to burst your bubble, but we don't have the electricity for desal. And there's a damn spider or something. I just ended its life. Yeah, it was just crawling across my desk here. And I don't like things crawling across my desk when I'm on the radio. As much as it sounds great to have the desalination plants, unfortunately, it's a non-starter. We just don't have the electricity that would be needed. We are already expecting to have power outages in California this summer due to the insufficient electricity production, and it's going to get worse. That's the point, you know. Don't you think we need to make plans? As fossil fuel and nuke power plants are decommissioned, the amount of power being generated will be further reduced. All of the smug electric vehicle owners are increasing the demand of the reducing available power. Solar panels and windmills alone will never be able to produce enough power to supply even the current electricity needs. So, sorry to burst the desal bubble, but it just can't go exist with the insane libtard energy policies that we are all going to suffer greatly from. Do you have a comment to T's email, Sasha, Sachin?
Yeah. No, I'm just, energy, desal is energy intensive, but now here, like I said, there are various sources of power supply. We use power for everything. Like our air condition actually, per daily usage in terms of kilowatt hours, that's much higher than what you would use to produce for our average household in terms of desal power. So again, that's the next challenge. It is there. I'm not denying it, but I think we have to balance energy and water crisis. I mean, that's the nexus. There's a nexus between energy and water, and we're looking at where lakes are drying up, Lake Mead or Lake Powell, and it impacts power generation there.
Uh-huh.
So there's a nexus between energy and power, but I don't know if I can comment on that desal should not be there just because we're not going to build more power plants or have additional power.
All right. In the 5 minutes we have left, if you want to call 479-1080 and ask a question or pose a comment to our audience and our guest, now is the time to do it. Here's an email from Kathy the Troll. California drought, past dry periods have lasted more than 200 years, scientists say, the Mercury News. The article came out this article that she gives a link to in this email came out a long time ago at another time when people were claiming we are having the worst drought ever. I don't know what it means when it comes to desalination, but it sure proves that man-made climate change is causing the droughts. We had a drought in the 70s, and then in the 80s, we had way too much rain. I'm not even sure we should call a few years with less rain a drought. So if anybody wants to see this article, I guess they can send me an email, mz@ksco.com, or maybe we'll have Jaunty post it on ksco.com. I don't know if you've heard of Dane Wiggington, Sachin. Have you heard of him? Does that name mean anything to you?
No.
Okay.
No.
He runs a website called Geoengineering Watch.org, and it's all about not so much climate change, but intentional climate manipulation. And for the last couple of months or so, Dane has had both a live program and a pre-recorded program that runs early mornings. I decided to reach out to Dane and get his input on desal, because he and I had never talked about that, and he pointed out to me that he's actually covered it in some of his programs that have been broadcast on KSCO. I was a little embarrassed because I don't have as much time as I wish I had to listen to all the programs on this station, because we cover everything. But I asked him what he thought about it, and he is not a fan of desal. And so I said, well, gee, we're going to be doing this program, and we have a guest scheduled for hour number 1, and I don't know what your arrangement with Rosie was, but all I got was an email saying that you're on from 10 until 11. I don't know if that means you have to leave or if you would even want to stay over. But you're certainly welcome to stay over into next hour if you want to, when Dane will be our guest, and he's going to give us the benefit of his research about desal. He's very, very concerned about where the climate manipulation is going to lead this country. He's really quite scared. And I was actually surprised. I thought he would be a big fan of desal, but apparently he's not. And during next hour, he will be on. And again, you're certainly welcome to stay on if you can, or if not, we understand too. Because my belief is that you arranged to and agreed to be on for the first hour of this program. Yes.
Yes, MZ. I can stay for 15 more minutes, but I need to take my daughter for a daddy-daughter dance. So.
Okay, great. Well, you can just take. We'll understand if you drop off the line when we're talking to somebody else. We appreciate your coming on. Wish you all the best. I'm still. It's just logic, especially when you tell me you're not offering desal as the be-all, end-all solution to our water problems. But it should be harnessed to go a long way towards solving, along with other, creation of new storage, reservoirs and so forth. Anyhow, and we'll probably do a follow-up to this, but I believe it should be on the fast track to get more and more of these desal plants online. And we had a great idea from one of our callers to create a salt company, to utilize the excess salt that will be the product, the byproduct, or the end product of these desal plants. Why not? Let's talk about it, but let's do more than talk about it. Let's do something about it, So that's my current thinking anyhow. So, and we're getting other callers calling in right now. It looks like Dane is on the line. And then some others. Yeah, Dane is on the line. Hold on a second. Let me introduce you. Dane Wiggington, let me introduce you to Sachin here. And he will stay with us for 10 or 15 minutes into the next hour. So.
Sounds good, Michael. Thank you.
Okay, very good. So you are listening to KSCO, Santa Cruz, Salinas, Monterey, San Jose. We got
51 degrees. Today will be sunny with a high near 75. Light winds 10 to 15 miles per hour in the afternoon. Tonight, patchy fog after 3 a.m. Otherwise, partly cloudy, low of 45. Sunday, partly sunny, then becoming sunny, high near 76. Light winds. Sunday night, low of 47. Monday through Friday, sunny, high near between 75 and 80 degrees all week long. On the seas, we have a small craft advisory in effect from 3 p.m. this afternoon through this evening. Today, southwest winds 5 to 10 knots, becoming westerly 15 to 25 knots, with gusts up to 30 knots this afternoon. Wind waves 6 to 7 feet, swells southwest around 2 feet at 16 seconds. KSCO News Talk time is now 11:06, and we return back to the Saturday Special with your host, MZ.
And before we launch back into the program, we like to typically use this time to do some programming notes. We got a really good one for today at 3 o'clock. Building Matters with David Parks is going to be on the air live. And we're going to have Dave is going to have a really special guest.
Oh, great news. Great news. Great show.
Warren Knox of Knox Roofing. Hi, folks. You know, that guy.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the real special guest. The not so special guest is me.
Ooh.
You know, yeah. So for some reason, Dave wanted to have me on the program too, along. So I get to do double duty today.
All right, I'll see you there
on KSCO Radio. Now, another quick bit of business here before we get back into the show. Last week's program where Amy interviewed me. Did you enjoy that show, or did you think it was like a, sort of a waste of time?
It was a surprise. I enjoyed the show. A little bit. It was nice to get a little change up in there in the format.
I received an email asking to please read this email on the air.
Ooh.
Now, I'm going to read this other one first, because they're from two different people. One is from my friend Dennis in Costa Rica, who sent me on Telegram last week, reflecting on KSCO and your Saturday special. The show was one of the worst Saturday specials and cast you in a poor light. You should take that recording and give it to a shrink and ask him for an evaluation. I found the show to be very revealing about you, and even I discovered a couple of things I did not know. I was thinking you must be in need of validation, that you are a good guy and not some greedy prick. Your best shows cover important community issues, not something to feed your ego. My comments are not meant to hurt your feelings. Did you ever get a chance to watch the Admiral's motivational video I shared with you? Have you ever made your bed, ever in your life? Anyhow, it goes on and on.
That's
so
one.
Dennis did not like the program last week, and one bit. And then here's another one from a long time, from a previous host on KSCO who has not been heard from in some time. But out of the blue, he sent an email yesterday that we received. Please read this on the show tomorrow. Dear friends, most of us remember Dave Allen. When Dave was hit by a stroke and half his body became paralyzed, he also had a strong, slurred speech impediment. No radio station in the world would have kept him on the air, but Michael Zwerling did. He knew that radio was everything to Dave. Dave continued his show and still gave us greatness. MZ also took pity on me and gave me a way to lift my family from poverty. I will always remember Michael with gratitude, love, and respect. I have been fortunate to have known some of the greatest people in the world. Michael Zwerling is one. Now, this feels really weird for me to be reading this, and it sort of might strengthen Dennis's point that I'm an egomaniac. Why else would somebody read this about himself? If you ever hear someone saying bad things about MZ, remember that they are petty, ignorant, jealous, and small. May God bless you, Michael Zwerling, and may God bless KSCO, the freest radio station in the world. Thank you with all my heart. Humble Brian the Great.
Nice.
So, anyhow, thank you for those kind words. I have done what Humble Brian requested, read that on the air. Okay, now let's officially start hour number 2. Okay, I'm here.
Oh, hello, darling. I hate to hang up on you, but I'm sorry, baby, but I have to go. It's time for that wonderful record show. I'd love to visit, but you'll have to call back. KSCO has the inside track.
Okay, we've been doing a follow-up program on Desal, program that we did 10 or 11 years ago.
I'm sorry, baby, but I really gotta go to KSCO Radio. Bye.
And Sachin, our guest from last hour, was kind enough to say he'll stay for another 15 minutes, and I've used up 12 of them already. But anyhow, Sachin, do you have any last things to say to our audience before you do your father-daughter stuff today?
No, I would thank you for having me, MZ, here. I just would say that, I think every agency in California has their jurisdiction to approve different rules and regulations. And, we were talking about marine life impact, and that was already determined what those impacts are and how much mitigation is needed by the Regional Water Board. And obviously that topic came up again during the Coastal Commission. So I think there is science, technology, engineering to handle most concerns or all of it in some cases. And I think it can be solved. And maybe that's just the engineer talking in me.
Okay.
So hopefully we can, everybody will not agree to everything in life. I know that. Everybody has different opinions, but I think for the good of all and the good future generations, hope we all can make the best decisions and hold each and everyone accountable for.
Great. Dane Wiggington, our guest for this hour, is also on the line. It's only 11:13. Maybe Dane has a question to ask of you, but I definitely, I guess you've already been introduced last hour. But Dane, you have anything to say to Sachin before he takes off?
Hello, Sachin. I just am curious if you're familiar, for example, on the energy situation alone, with how much oil, for example, Saudi Arabia uses solely to run their desalination plants in one day. Are you familiar with how much energy they use in one day to run their plants alone, just in Saudi Arabia?
No, I don't have the fact on the top of my head.
It's one just for your listeners, MZ. It's 1.5 million barrels of oil per day, just to run Saudi Arabia's desal plants. That's something that needs to be considered, especially when California is already heading for blackouts. And that's not even to consider the country in question that was brought up last hour is Chile. And I did cover that in my broadcast this morning, coincidentally, that the Chilean fisheries are tanked now. And I have some statements I can repeat later in the hour from Chilean fishermen about just how severely their fishing industry has been impacted. But that's in addition to the energy consumption. And just try to get your arms around that. 1.5 million barrels of oil per day just to run Saudi Arabia's desal plants.
Okay, right. So, jeez. I feel like I don't know if you have any answer to that here. It's sort of awkward here because here I have invited you to stay and we're leaving.
I'm no responsive, but I think of the State Lands Commission permit, we were asked to try to go for 100% renewables. And, here, even before the coastal hearing, we signed up an MOU with Orange County Power Authority that would go and get renewables to power the desal plant. So I think to the extent there is renewable, our goal or intent was to go for renewables and not, fossil fuel.
Well, certainly that would be a move in the right direction, but in regard to so-called renewables, which, technically speaking, are not truly renewable, and that is my background, by the way. I work for Bechtel Power Corporation. My home was on the cover of the world's largest renewable energy magazine. I have hydro, wind, and solar, but the energy density of carbon fuel, in this case oil, to match 1.5 million barrels of oil with solar power would be immense, absolutely immense, to even begin to try to do that. So that's what people need to consider, that, the renewable solution sounds nice. In mathematical terms, it's absolutely inconceivable that that transition could be done. So
and your whole background is renewable energy, right, Dane?
It is. Again, my home was on the cover of the world's largest renewable energy magazine, Home Power. I've been off grid for 20 years, and I worked on the first commercial solar plants in the U.S. in the early 80s. In fact, that plant is a blowing field of sand now because it was not economically maintainable. And even with solar power, and this is what listeners need to know, those who really think renewable energy is a Pollyanna. For example, a chemical called hexafluoroethane is used in solar panel production. That chemical is 17,000 times more potent to greenhouse gas than CO2. How renewable is that? And again, above it all, Michael, and we can go into this to any degree you want, but we have the elephant in the equation, climate engineering operations that are blocking not only our rain, but blocking our solar power. And again, until that issue is addressed, we will continue to try to grab at straws like desalination to try to put a toxic Band-Aid on a bigger problem.
Right. Okay. So Sachin had to leave because if he didn't, he'd be in big trouble with his daughter, and none of us want that. So, okay. So we will thank Sachin for being with us for the first hour and part of the second hour. And let's take Marguerite's phone call from last hour, so she didn't get... Doesn't want to drink. That's all it says on the computer. What don't you want to drink, Marguerite?
I don't want to drink too much wine. Just kidding. Hey, our reservoirs were at full capacity last year until Governor Moonbeam's tree-hugging state water commissioners emptied the reservoirs dry as a desert to release the farmed salmon to the ocean. California hasn't built a single new reservoir in over 50 years, yet the population has tripled, and we, the people, are in the snooze zone. Hey, thirdly and lastly, why would anyone, especially me, want to drink, bathe, or water the ground with desal Fukushima contaminated poison seawater?
Well, Dane, what do you have to say about that?
First, I would like to, let's add some statistical data to this so we can weigh the equation on that account. The reservoirs weren't full last year. Lake Shasta is in my backyard, and it was radically low since far before last year. In my specific location, since 2007, we are about 500 inches of rain short. 500. So the notion that they're just letting the waters out of the dams, I know that's been a rumor that's been highly propagated. In fact, it's not true. I cross over the Sacramento River below the dam constantly. It's a trickle. They're trying to keep whatever water they can in the dam, but there's simply no rain. We had a rainless winter here. In fact, from December of last year to early April this year, in my location, we should have had about 50 inches of rain. We had less than 1 inch. Less than 1 inch out of what should have been... Sorry?
They're chemtrailing the skies. They're chemtrailing the skies like crazy. Why aren't they seeding the clouds?
You're correct. Okay, and that point you're correct. And this is where people need to understand the difference between climate engineering and cloud seeding to produce precipitation. Climate engineering or solar radiation management is not intended to produce precipitation. In fact, in the West Coast case, it has exactly the opposite effect. Too many small particles in the atmosphere. The droplets don't combine and fall as rain. They simply migrate further. We have radio frequency microwave transmissions as well that are breaking up the storm formations completely. And we can see this on satellite imagery, Michael. We're not guessing. And so, thank you for bringing up what people call chemtrails, which is geoengineering or climate engineering or solar radiation management. And that is the elephant in the room. And we can build all the reservoirs we want. If we can't even fill the ones we have, because of climate engineering blocking our precipitation, new reservoirs won't help.
That's right. And you can't even go to the bathroom without using electricity. I mean, you have to have electricity to turn on the water and to flush the toilet. So no wonder everybody has such a problem, losing weight. I mean, we don't even use any calories to turn on the water spigot. Hello?
And then in the case of the aerosol operations, which for the listeners that don't know, Michael, solar radiation management is the spraying of highly toxic light scattering particles into the sky for the stated purpose of blocking some of the sun's incoming thermal energy, for the stated purpose of reducing global warming. It completely disrupts the hydrological cycle, the rain cycle. It toxifies soils and waters. And blocks power from solar panels, radically blocks power from solar panels. That's what got me into this battle to begin with. And because it's reducing precipitation, we have a loss of hydropower now, too. So every conceivable direction, climate engineering is the elephant in the room that needs to be addressed. But the desalination plants are a leap from the frying pan into the fire.
Okay.
It's Godzilla. It's Godzilla in the room, and chemtrails cause skin cancer and give cancer to our pets.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah, I think you... Can everybody hear me okay? Can you hear me, Dane?
Can hear you fine. What Marguerite was referring to on the skin cancer, and she's correct, the single greatest factor destroying Earth's ozone layer, and it is an incredibly horrific condition now. We face near-term functional collapse of the ozone layer. We're getting UVC in the surface now. We're even detecting trace elements of X-ray, which means the ozone layer is very near to functional collapse. So she's correct about that.
Wow. Okay, let's see. We got, looks like a full board of callers now. Thank you, Marguerite. Here is an email from David Clay, desalination. All of our fresh water was once salinated water. All of the water that we have has always been here. We are drinking water, we are drinking dinosaur pee. Why can't we help the process along? When the sun evaporates the water to send us rain, it leaves the salt behind. Okay, that's David Clay's entire email to mz@ksco.com. We'll just leave that rhetorical here. Next caller will be Zach in Watsonville. Zach, you're on with Dane and MZ.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. I got a kind of an outside-of-the-box idea that I want to use in the audience. Nuclear is probably, in my opinion, the most feasible way to desalinate and cleanest way, in my opinion. I'm not an expert, but I have a little crazy idea. So what about a siphon, a gigantic one, 20-foot diameter pipe that you can move around in case there is an issue with ocean saline concentration, whatever. I don't know if there is, and then you actually siphon the seawater through membranes as it goes along. Saltwater excretion ports excrete the saltwater as it goes down the line, and you send it to underground aquifers in municipalities. So you're using gravity as a way to desalinate and generate power through turbines along the way as well. So you're killing like 3 birds with one stone.
It's certainly sounds nice if we don't look at the actual science that would be involved with that. Again, to create hydropower, for example, I mean, you have to have a tremendous amount of head pressure and flow, and you're not going to have any way of siphoning from a lower elevation to a higher elevation and be able to produce anything in that realm. In regard to the saline, here's a few recent articles. This one from National Geographic. Desalination plants produce far more waste brine than previously thought. And in regard to the amount they produce, I mean, here's a recent statistic. This is from BBC. These plants discharge 142 million cubic meters of extremely salty brine every single day. It's killing ecosystems. You can't just dump this toxic material back in the ocean, but that's what they're doing. That's what the cruise ships do. And, also, this does nothing for forest ecosystems, agriculture. We have other far more pressing issues that, again, starting from our collapsing ozone layer, that relate to another form of technology that was going to save us as well. That's literally driving the nails into our collective coffins by the day, and that's solar radiation management. So the more we try to tech our way out of the paradigm we've set up, the further we push ourselves into an early grave. And that's exactly what's happening here. And these are statistics I'm dishing up that are hard verifiable facts.
Okay, you sound like you have got the knowledge, but I just feel like there's an infinite source of water in the ocean. And what's better, not having water, or just, using that infinite source and trying to give people water. You know what I mean?
You're correct in that sense. Here's what needs to happen is, again, the single greatest drought-causing factor, period, is climate engineering operations. And the science bears this out. Your listeners can look this up, Michael. And until we deal with that, our problems will only continue to manifest, and we can speculate on the agendas and objectives of the climate engineering operations blocking precipitation into the U.S. West and other regions. But the fact that they are blocking it is indisputable. We can see it on satellite imagery. So here's a fun fact to consider. On a warming planet, and our planet is absolutely warming. In fact, it's far worse than anything we're being told. And I have no love, Michael, as you know, for all the environmental organizations, Greenpeace, Sierra Club, WWF, Earth Justice, all of them, incredibly hypocritical. They will not address the climate engineering issue because they don't want to lose their 501c3 nonprofit. But to go back to your question on the oceans, the atmosphere can carry 7% more moisture for every degree C of warming. Based on frontline data, we think we're past 3.5 degrees C right now. It should be raining far more overall globally, but it's not. And the reason it's not is because of climate engineering operations. So, again, this elephant in the room has to be acknowledged, but the desalination plants are absolutely not a cure for, again, the energy reason and the toxic environmental reasons. We need to look at the bigger part of the equation. That bigger part is in our skies, and people need to look up and consider what's happening there, and that's why our rain isn't falling, period. We can speculate on the agendas or objectives, but I challenge your listeners, Michael, to go to geoengineeringwatch.org. We are non-political, no advertising. Search the engineering drought section, and they will be shocked to the marrow. This is weather warfare being waged on the continental U.S. by elements of our own government and military.
Okay, Zach in Watsonville, thanks for calling 479-1080 here. Let's see, Frank in SoCal, you're the next caller here.
Yes, good morning, guys. As far as desal is concerned, I thought I was for it. I guess I'm still for it, but now we have a gentleman on that is saying that it's, to put it mildly, not the solution, and he's talking about global climate warfare going on, which could be going on. I don't know. I mean, what I do know is I've been living around this county since the 1950s, and starting in the 70s, we had our first drought period, basically. And since the 1970s till now, it's been more drought than rain. It's 3 years drought, 1 year rain, and I, like your other smart caller, I years ago had the thought process that nuclear-powered power stations that also doubled as desalination facilities up and down the coast. I think if California had abundant water and abundant energy, the productivity that the agricultural productivity that we could have in this state would probably at least partially, if not totally, offset the cost. And there's an old saying, MC, where there's a will, there's a way. And I think what I'm getting at with that is that there's no will up in Sacramento to get any of this stuff done. It's almost like Sacramento wants us to have constant shortages of water, of electricity, high gas prices. They want to put the screws to us for one reason or another. And so until we change the leadership in Sacramento, nothing's going to get done. But I'm mostly pro desal. I think it can be done. I think the time is well past to where the debate is over. It needs to be done. We need to get water somehow.
Well, let me agree with you on this point. The, quote, leadership in Sacramento, starting with Governor Gavin Newsom, whom I've had private meetings with in his office in the Capitol with his top aide presenting data on climate engineering that they know absolutely is going on, but won't say anything because they're not going to bite the hand that feeds them. The printed Fed fiat money from the central banks that keeps California afloat every year. Gavin Newsom is a tool for those in power, and as far as the hardships on the citizens, yes, they are fully behind making sure that happens. But again, let's not leap from the frying pan into the fire. Here's a recent headline from the UK Guardian. Quote, the salt they pump back in, i.e. from desalination plants, kills everything. That's the headline. Is the cost of Chile's fresh water too high? Here's a statement from a Chilean fisherman named Eduardo Munoz. He stated this, quote, since desalination began a few years back, I've hardly had any luck. He says the salt they pump back into the sea kills everything, and there's just a thick layer of sludge on the seabed now. They've cut my earnings in half by contaminating the area. There's nothing I can do. Someone needs to help us because they never listen to the fishermen, quote, unquote. Again, these are what we're not told in these attempts to tech our way out of something that's already being caused by tech in the skies, and we're just simply digging ourselves a far deeper hole. We have to deal with what's happening in our skies, or the rain can continue to be shut off systematically. This is not nature; it's climate engineering.
So if we can't desal and we can't build reservoirs. And you were just commenting that we need to get the war on the climate stopped. How do we do that?
It comes with a critical mass of awareness. We have to push this issue to light. We have to overcome the social media and major media censorship. I've been asked for interviews by BBC, New York Times, USA Today, many others, National Geographic. None of those interviews ever happened because they were systematically shut down. Those in power will do anything they can to keep climate engineering from coming to light. But let's, again, not leap from the frying pan into the fire. It's not a solution to poison our oceans in the attempt to fill our glass with water a little bit longer. Building more reservoirs won't help when we can't fill the reservoirs we already have for the reasons I've already cited. And again, forests are dying everywhere. Desalination is not going to help our forests. We're not going to sprinkler the forests everywhere. And we face other problems with agriculture, which you brought up. It doesn't matter how much water we have. When climate engineering is changing atmospheric chemistry, lowering atmospheric relative humidity, we have other factors, not in addition to the destroyed ozone layer, which is frying plant foliage. We have a condition called VPD, vapor pressure deficit. Have you noticed how low the humidities are now, Michael? And our caller, have you noticed how low atmospheric humidity often is now?
Yes, actually, I have noticed that. My first observation is where the heck is the fog nowadays?
Exactly. So what you have is called VPD, vapor pressure deficit. So plants and trees, since there's not enough humidity, they shut their pores, their respiratory ports. They don't breathe. They don't inhale carbon. They don't exhale oxygen. They don't grow. We have far bigger problems. And again, desalination will not fix anything. It's a temporary toxic Band-Aid that won't save us from the tech that's killing us from above.
So the problem is not that we're not having rain. The problem isn't that what do we do about saving water. The problem is how do we identify and stop the erosion of our atmosphere.
Climate engineering operation, again, I'm not negating all the other forms of human damage to the planet, and there is an endless list there. I'm not denying that.
I agree with you there.
We've been horrible stewards of the planet, there's no question, but the intentional intervention in the climate is not a benevolent endeavor. It is about power and control, ultimately. They're affecting our food production now, and it's not just drought. Further east, we have deluge drowning crops. We have flash freezes drowning crops, and again, that's another form of climate engineering called chemical ice nucleation for weather modification. Let me give one quick example I gave to Michael off the air earlier today. Denver, Colorado, the real field temperature Thursday of this week was 94 degrees on Thursday. 94. Snowed yesterday. Snowed last night. Temperature down to teens. That's climate engineering. That is not nature. That's chemical ice nucleation for weather modification. All-out weather warfare is being waged on populations all over the globe. And we can debate the agendas and objectives, but it is absolutely going on. So again, back to desalination, that is simply one more nail in our collective coffins. It is not a way forward.
Well, if I could have just one last question or comment. So as far as climate engineering is concerned, how do we identify those responsible, get them to stop it, and reverse the effects?
We start by bringing it to light. And on the desalination, again, I could go on and on. Here's another recent article from BBC also. Impact of Middle East water desalination plant in the spotlight. Ocean dead zones. Kelp die-off off California, already horrific. We've lost, and I know this firsthand. I've been diving off the coast of California since about 1975. Kelp is 95% gone. Oceans there's about 500 dead zones, and the dead zones are associated with hypoxic and anoxic zones that are formed off the dump pipes for desalination plants as well. That's one more factor, deoxygenates the ocean. So, again, the list goes on, and none of these things are talked about when these issues are proposed, or these plants are proposed.
Well, you've given me a lot to think about.
He sure has, and he's given me a lot to think about, and we have totally jammed lines, so I want to thank you, Frank, for your great questions. And we're going to take our next caller now, who is none other than Steve in Pacific Grove. Go ahead, Steve.
Hi, guys. Good show you got going, Mike, about environment and problems.
Yes.
And I was watching Dick Cavett last night do a rerun on interviewing Governor of California then, Reagan.
Yeah.
Justifying his cutting down all the redwoods. And I've been on the radio suggesting we plant 1 million redwoods and make it a $20,000 fine to cut one down because they are sponges that attract clouds. and moisture. And once we cut down the redwood empire, we turned into a desert. And I want to stress that. But I also want to say this. If you remove a wolf or a tiger from a jungle or an environment, the whole system collapses. The top predator is necessary. What we're missing as a people is a John Lennon type of leader, not a politician, to unify us. And I want to show
we had that person in Donald Trump.
Well, Donald Trump is not as intelligent as a John Lennon. And he has his big problems, like with Putin and whatnot. But I want to say this. We're up against a media that keeps us from having the wolf in the forest, that keeps us from having a tiger in the jungle. Did you see the 60 Minutes piece, Birds Aren't Real, about a guy with a van and a website like me with my John Lennon story? They were trying to wash me up by inference, and that's how sophisticated the media is to keep you from having people like me lead you.
Well, wait a second here, Steve. You know that we love you, but we don't like. We don't like
save you people.
We don't like to have the program hijacked. Okay, I don't want to take up Dane's time or the time of our audience. We know what's important to you. Nobody gives you more time in the world on talk radio than I do, even though I know what you're calling about. It's just because I'm a kind-hearted person. That's all there is to it. Anyhow, please, you have to understand that I don't want this show, of all shows, to be hijacked. Thanks for calling, Steve. Okay, Dane.
Michael,
Go ahead, Dane. Go ahead.
Okay, first I want to back up. What Steve said about the redwoods and their ability to create atmospheric moisture and indeed even precipitation, he is completely correct. What people don't understand or often realize is it's not just that the trees grow where the rain falls. The rain falls where the trees grow. Both are completely necessary. In regard
symbiotic,
in regard to Mr. Trump and his BLM appointee Ryan Zinke, Ryan Zinke's cure to forest fires, for example, and again, on the fire situation, I encourage your listeners to look up the engineering wildfire section at geoengineeringwatch.org, because geoengineering, again, single greatest causal factor for the intensity and frequency of the fires, not talking about the source of ignition, but the conditions that have allowed these fires to do what they do. So back to Ryan Zinke, Trump's appointee. Ryan Zinke's cure for forest fires is just cut down the forest, literally. And again, I have a background there, too. I've done 6 cost-share programs with state and local officials. I ran all of them. My dad was an arborist. You can't just cut down the forest and expect to do anything but create more harm. So there's a lot of division. We're non-political. I don't like the other side of the fence any more than I like one. It's all just simply two sides of the same coin. But on the trees and planting back trees, unfortunately, because of the conditions I already mentioned, here's what happens when you try to plant a tree now in Northern California. In the early 2000s, the success rate for planting a sapling, seedling, it's called a plug, in the fall, success rate was about 95%, meaning 95% of the trees make it through the first year. Success rate now, 0. Nothing you plant will make it through the first year, unless it's a genetically modified organism, and even then it's questionable. None of the natural tree seedlings make it through the first year. What do we do now?
How about take the next caller?
There you go.
All right. That next caller is John in Scotts Valley. John, you're on with Dane and MZ.
Hi, Dane. Hey, I was listening to a show a while back. I think it was on KGO, and they were talking about a solar minimum that's going to be going on. I want to find out if that's real or not.
Okay, in regard to that narrative that, there's some sort of, coming ice age, which there's zero factual data to back that up. So let's put it into context with facts and figures again. Even the Maunder minimum, a major solar minimum that did cause cooling on planet Earth, that was a 0.25 reduction in solar radiance. That's 1/400th reduction. That is a virtual drop in the ocean compared to the warming we have created. How fast is the planet warming right now, statistically, mathematically? Planet's warming at the thermal energy equivalent rate. That's the heat buildup rate of the heat that would be generated in 7 Hiroshima bombs per second. 7 per second. That's how fast it's building up. It's been going into the oceans. and the oceans are now superheating, deoxygenating, dying.
Yeah.
We can't continue on this course, and the elephant in this equation, too, and climate engineering is making it worse, not better, is methane release. I'm not
so
talking
let me
about...
ask you something.
Yeah.
Is it possible that climate engineering could be used for good purposes? I mean, if we were able to do it right and have it rain in places that we need rain, like in the deserts and Gobi deserts and, things, if we were able to do that, would that be good?
The best thing they could do with climate engineering is to cease completely. And think about rain seeding in concept. If rain is migrating across the continent and you cause it to precipitate out in one location, it didn't get wherever it was going. So someone lost. And so you can't gain from that equation. Right now, all they're doing is blocking the planet's attempt to respond to the damage done.
Because of the chemicals they're using. Yeah. With the isotopes, the aluminum.
Aluminum, barium, strontium, manganese. We've identified graphene now. Manganese, the last 100.
What about silver? If they were just to use silver iodide, which is the component they need to use that they've been using in the past for cloud seeding to produce more droplets, if they would just do that, that would be good.
Still problematic. And again, just think of no, it's still problematic. And even think of, again, the simple concept of rain. Say California had just weather mod programs like you're describing, and they caused the rain to fall out on the western side of the Sierras, and it doesn't make it to the eastern side. Somebody loses. You can't interfere with the natural systems without getting a bad result. I mean, this is the pharmaceutical cure for planet Earth. How many pharmaceutical commercials do you hear? Take this for that symptom, and by the way, here's 50 side effects. And you listen to that and think, who would do this? And the same is true, except with what they're doing in our skies. I want to stress this. It is not benevolent. Climate modification.
And I want to let you know one thing real quick here. In Colorado, it does snow in May. It has snowed in May, and that can happen at any time, even in the past.
But that's not the point. It doesn't go from 94 degrees to snow in less than a day, not without help with weather modification and chemical ice nucleation. And we've tested the precipitation, so we know what's in it. We're not guessing.
Well, I've lived out there, and I've snowed on the 4th of July.
but
I don't know about that one, but
it doesn't go from 94 degrees, pushing 100 degrees to snow in less than a day without a whole lot of help from climate engineering. I'm not saying there can't be frozen precipitation in the past, but even
I've seen what you're talking about. I was fishing out in a lake in Wyoming one time with my dad in the central part of the state, kind of by the Snowy Range. I looked up above, and I saw all these planes going back and forth, dozens of them, spraying out chemical aerosols all over the damn place. And I noticed that they were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I go, Dad, what the hell is that? Look at that. I wish I would have taken pictures of it.
Another point to consider is we have patents for chemical ice nucleation going back to 1950. So we know it's been going on at least that long. So whatever historical events you might have seen decades ago doesn't necessarily mean there wasn't weather modification involved with that as well.
No, this is recently. This was not a few years ago when I was watching that.
Well,
it was nuts. And then a couple days later, there was a major tornado in Oklahoma City down the road from there.
Here's the bottom line for anybody from any side of the fence on the climate issue, period. I don't care what side of the fence anybody's on. There's no legitimate discussion about climate from any perspective without addressing climate engineering first and foremost. Again, back to desalination. That is absolutely simply a way of avoiding the real problem at the cost of toxifying what little is left of our environment.
So, but as far as the solar minimum, that's a crock, huh?
Absolutely intended mass distraction from what's actually unfolding. Yes, mass distraction.
We're not going into an ice age. Okay, I didn't think so, but I thought I'd ask you anyway.
Watch a film called Chasing Ice. Don't believe me. I don't want anybody to believe anything I'm saying. I'm asking people to investigate. Go online and watch a film called Chasing Ice.
Well, I do believe what you're saying because I've seen it. I've looked up there. I look up there all the time, and I see things going on all the time with these planes going back and forth, and all of a sudden you see the vapor trail go back out. But it's not a vapor trail because it's a much bigger and much more defined, and it mixes in with the clouds that are up there, and it just grows and grows and spins, and you can watch it. It's nuts.
A great point I need to elaborate on. The condensation trail lie. We have up-close film footage of military tankers, C-17s, KC-135s, KC-10s, up close, nozzles visible, turning dispersions on and off. End of discussion. It's not condensation. All commercial
carriers. What can they do
about
that?
We have to bring it
what
to
light.
light.
What can we do about it?
We have.
Who can you turn it to?
Again, there's no silver bullet. We have to bring this issue to light, and that effort will take all of us by mailing out credible links from a credible source. Geoengineeringwatch.org tries to be that source and send these links to everybody, government officials, environmental groups, agricultural groups, ranchers. We need to share this
data. Should we send it to Pelosi, or what should I do?
Anyone,
send it to her and Kamala?
Everyone, and hold them accountable.
Gavin isn't going to do anything about it. Gavin Newsom doesn't do anything for anybody.
He doesn't. He's a tool.
You brought it to his attention.
And so is Pelosi, and so is I've been in Barbara Boxer's office. Same thing. These people are bought, sold, and paid for. I don't care what their political stripe is. Same with Doug Lamalfa in Northern California, who knows absolutely full well climate engineering is going on, and he won't say a word because he's not going to bite.
So you've actually approached the governor and said, Governor Newsom, we've got this. Here's the evidence. I'm showing you the evidence. Do something about it. He won't do anything about it.
I did a full data presentation to Governor Newsom in his office with his top aide at the Capitol.
That's why I'm voting him out of office, because he doesn't do anything for anybody. All right, well, thank you for your time. I just want to find out. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye, John in Scotts Valley. Who's next here? I'll just press next. No, wait a minute. Here's I got an email from somebody, and this is very important. This is from NL73489 to MZ. Hi, MZ. Please ask Dane Wiggington why he doesn't take callers anymore. Thanks.
It's a workload scenario, and we're able to put more data into the broadcast. And because our workload is so ramped up at this point, because environmental collapse is accelerating by the day, I didn't have the available time with all the other commitments I have to continue that particular exchange, and we were able to put more data into our weekly broadcast, so we went to that instead. So that's I apologize, but I just didn't have enough available time with all the fires I'm trying to tend in this battle to continue.
Okay, great. Next, I'll take the next call, and that would be Bob in Pacific Grove, who has a question. What is your question, Bob?
Well, my question is more a technical question about desal. The two big problems with desal are, number one, it takes a lot of pressure, like 1,000 psi, to squeeze that water through the membrane. And the other problem is that you got to get rid of the brine someplace. So, has anybody tried taking a pipe down to 2,000 feet in the ocean, where the pressure is about 1,000 psi, and just put the filters down there? And that way, all you have, the salt water, as it passing the filters, is going to drop from 35 parts per thousand, which is regular seawater, down to maybe 33, which is no big deal for anything that's growing out there. And then you just basically pump the fresh water out of this 2,000-foot deep pipe. Has anybody tried that?
The problem is if you put something at depth, and however many atmospheres you go down another atmosphere every 33 feet, and however great a depth you go to, that pressure is equal from all sides. So it does not create a pressure on one side of a filter membrane. It's on all sides. So it doesn't have the effect that you're describing. So that would not be a solution.
Yes, it would, because you're pumping water out of the pipe. So the pipe is basically air all the way down to where the filter is. I mean, we're pumping water from wells that are 2,500 feet deep in the middle of the Central Valley. So pumping water from a 2,000-foot deep pipe that's floating in the ocean shouldn't be a big deal.
But again, even when you're pumping out of a well, however deep that pump is, the pump could be 10,000 feet deep. But you're only pushing the water from whatever the static level is, the surface level is. So again, there's a lot more layers of hurdle to overcome here than what you're describing. And they've looked at all methods. I mean, as far as desalination, they're looking at any way they can to make it less destructive. But again, you're still faced with certain fundamentals, massive energy consumption and the disposal of the brine, and it doesn't cure what's happening to the planet. You could have a perfect desalination plant, and again, some people propose using nuclear. We have Fukushima, already a triple nuclear meltdown that's going to be an extinction level event if other factors don't do the job first.
Okay, now wait, don't go off on a tangent here. I just got rid of the two problems. One is the energy required. You've got the energy because you're 2,000 feet deep in the ocean, so it's free. All you got to do is pump it out
that doesn't. But you're describing two different opposing scenarios.
And the second problem is the brine. And if you're not reducing the brine from 35 parts per thousand, which is the ocean, to 70, but only going up to maybe 37, sea life won't care at all as long as the currents are going past the brine.
With all due respect, you're describing two different scenarios. If you're saying put an air-filled pipe 20,000 feet deep in the ocean or 2,000 feet deep in the ocean, then you have to pump that water up that distance, and now you're burning up that energy again. So you don't get something for nothing in that equation. It sounds good, but it's simply scientifically an opposing scenario, if you will. So it's not cured.
Right.
And
PG Bob, we appreciate this exchange here, but there are so many other people, and we want to get to all of them. So thanks for calling 479.
Have a great day.
1080. You too. Thank you for calling. Here's Jan in San Lorenzo Valley. Jan, you're on.
Hi.
Hi, Jan.
One thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that the way we use the water we have is not very wise. Do you have any idea how many gallons of water are flushed down the toilet every day? If we had some way of collecting the water from showers and kitchen sinks and have it put into like a tank or a barrel, whatever, and then every once in a while pump that up to another barrel up above, we could use that water again to flush our toilets. And there's a lot of things like that we could do. Reuse
I'm not
the water.
denying that there's certainly we should use water we have wisely, but that doesn't in any way, shape, or form save imploding environments and forests all over the globe. It does nothing for that. And again, back to the most destructive human activity ever deployed by the human race, which is climate intervention operations. We have forest ecosystems dying all over the globe at a horrific rate.
I'm living in the forest, and it is dying up here.
They're dying everywhere. We have right now in Siberia, not many people know that Siberia lost 40 million acres to forest fires last year. And it appears there's a direct connection between climate engineering and forest fires. There's a very important video called Wildfires Serve Geoengineering Agenda. Would encourage all to look at that. You can find it in the engineering wildfires section on the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org. Climate engineering operations, again, single greatest and most immediate threat we face short of nuclear cataclysm. That's a mathematical, statistical fact. So we can do little stopgap things, but that's like trying to stop a tidal wave with a Dixie cup, if that analogy is clear.
It would help in some ways, and people with lawns that don't produce anything. I just think there's got to be something that people can do about their usage of water that would help. Also,
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I'm just saying if we don't stop the problem that's keeping the rain from falling from our skies,
you're right.
All these other measures won't add up to anything if we don't deal with that first.
That gets into politics. We need to get this governor out and get people who are doing things for our good, not to destroy us into power.
I would argue the whole political everything is simply a way to keep the population busy. As Mark Twain said, if voting did any good, they wouldn't let us do it. And I would argue that's exactly true. They want division, polarization in the population, while in the meantime, they're pounding the nails into our collective coffins from above. We can't escape what they're spraying. And not only are these environmental factors a problem, we are breathing aluminum, barium, strontium, manganese, graphene, and possible biologicals. Again, we need to expose what's happening in our skies, or statistically, we're not going to be around much longer, and that's just a mathematical fact. So,
well, thank you for your work. I really appreciate what you do.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for calling 479-1080. Here is Mark in Capitola, our last caller for the day. Go ahead, Mark. You're on.
Hi, Dane and MZ. I've got a couple comments and then a question. First of all, it's off topic, but I loved your mother on Mother's Day, the show where you played her clip. Anyways, it was fabulous. She was awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Number two, I just read a book by Neil Stephenson called Termination Shock, and it was actually, he does like speculative fiction and whatnot. He's a pretty good writer. I like his book. This one was about it was about geoengineering, and they were using sulfur dioxide as the medium to disperse light. It's a good read, and talks a little bit about the geopolitical implications of doing such a project. So my question. Oh, and number 3, I fully agree with what Dane was just mentioning about polarization of the population. It is, or just just sowing discord and polarization is a huge. I think I just see it everywhere, and it's a big. Everything leads to that. It's a big deal. So my question is does the U.S. or any other government actually acknowledge the operation, the programs that are happening with the geoengineering, and if so, how are they funded? And that's my question.
First, governments around the globe, thank you for the question, Mark. Governments around the globe are all colluding and cooperating on climate engineering. It cannot be otherwise. You can't just geoengineer over your own country. U.S. military, biggest player. U.S. military tanker fleet is 3 times bigger than all the other tankers in the world combined, aerial tankers. As far as funding goes, we know the Pentagon is missing $31 trillion since the late 90s. Where do they even get that money, let alone where did it go? So, again, this is printed central bank money. They're not about to let anybody know these programs are going on. They're going to deny it as long as possible because the liability issues are absolutely incalculable. Mark, what would populations around the globe do if they knew their governments had done this to them without their knowledge or their consent, and that every single weather cataclysm now is subject to the fact that climate engineering played a factor in that event? And would populations at that point go absolutely ballistic, taking to the streets with their pitchforks and torches looking for anyone and everyone involved? If we can expose this issue, we will cause a shockwave around the globe, and we need everyone to help us. Go to the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org, look at the activist suggestions link. For no cost at all, you can share these links from your home computer, and we need that kind of help, starting with the film The Dimming. We did a groundbreaking documentary titled The Dimming. Can be viewed for free off our homepage. That's a must-view.
Yeah, sounds good. And then it's just real quick if you have time. Now, are the programs that are being enacted? Are there good intentions, or is it just? I mean,
no.
Is it being done with the intention of helping people?
No. These programs are about power and control. Look at what the elites say. Too many people on our planet. Population needs to be thinned dramatically. When you look at, let's look at what Zbigniew Brzezinski said. Presidential advisor for all presidents from Johnson all the way up to he died during the start of Trump's presidency. What he said on the record, Zbigniew Brzezinski, with today's technology, it's far easier to kill 1 million people than to control them, quote, unquote. That's what this is about.
Yeah.
So we got that's. I know there's more to say. We could talk about it forever. There's less than a minute left. We have to. No. There's no time. There's no time. Sorry,
okay.
Mark. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for the show. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you very much, Dane, for being available at the last minute here, literally, to go on the program. That's about it. All the best to your show at 8 o'clock on KSCO on Saturday mornings. And that's it for this week. See you all next week.
That's all, folks.
You are listening to KSCO, Santa Cruz, Salinas.